welcome to the first ever episode of the Uncomplicated Podcast, a self-help podcast dedicated to fostering conversations that matter to the mental and personal well-being. I am Raihan, your nutritionist and your host.
And I'm a Haikal, your co-host, and I'm a clinical psychologist as well.
Yes, hi Haikal.
Hi. Hello, wow. So today we are going to be introducing ourselves as we are also, well, if you have time, maybe we'll go into a topic that I've planned about, but I think it's important for people to know what's our purpose here and maybe to a certain extent who we are as well.
Yes, that's right. So maybe we will introduce ourselves. So maybe I'll let Haikal introduce himself first.
Well, I mentioned I'm a clinical psychologist. I specialize in adult mental health and relationship issues. So I deal with issues ranging from depression, anxiety. I have couples coming to me for issues with communication. And so for myself, I am also a schema therapist, which means that I will look into how individuals' past experiences actually shape into the patterns that they have in their everyday life.
On the other hand, I am a nutritionist. So I have been doing nutrition for many, many years. And also I do other podcasts as well. And this would be the first that will touch on mental health as well as self-improvement.
Yeah, so Ryan, I mean, this idea for this podcast was started by you, right? You asked me like, hey, Haikal, you want to do this or not? So,
is it?
What made you want to start this podcast?
I guess because for me, myself, I enjoy reading books and I enjoy hearing audiobooks. And one of the things that I always ask myself is, what if one day we can actually discuss or maybe put in topics that would be relevant to the context of where we live and how we grow up, etc., into more of an audio format, or I would say like a reading a book kind of format, but it's in the form of audio. And then I had a thought, when I came up with this idea, the first person that comes to mind is Haikal.
Okay.
Because Haikal is very knowledgeable in terms of mental health, and he himself is a clinical psychologist. So hence, I feel like Haikal would be the best person to come in and give inputs in terms of, improving ourselves, about tackling mental issues.
Well, thank you for the trust that you have in me. When Raihan asked me for this idea, I'm like, oh, okay, sounds fine. I mean, I am into podcasts. I listen to podcasts a lot. Sometimes I listen for entertainment. There are some podcasts that I listen to, usually, in fact, for information. Even though I'm a psychologist, I still have a thirst for knowledge.
Yes.
So when the idea came out from you, I'm like, it sounds possible, because the idea of starting up a podcast has been there for quite a while, I have to admit. I've been on a number of podcasts, and then I thought, are you going to be starting your own podcast? You have this information. And I thought, if I start a podcast, I don't know how to set up all these kind of things. Will people listen? And then Raihan came. Then I'm like, I think this could work. Yeah, so that's why I'm like, okay, let's see how it goes.
You want to touch about when we met?
Yeah, so in fact, we met before the pandemic, right?
Was it?
Probably, I don't know.
I think, was it during the pandemic? Because I remember you had to wear masks, right?
Oh, yes. It was a pandemic then. So it's probably about 4 years ago. We met on this Surya show called Manja.
Yes.
And so I was on that day talking about mental health as usual. You were talking about...
I was talking about health, because I'm a nutritionist, right? So we actually had to do a health segment, and then Haikal had to do a mental health segment.
Correct. Yeah. So we just started talking to each other, and I think we quite hit it off on that day. The funny thing was that a lot of people thought that we were twin brothers because for some reason we were wearing the same green shirt and brown pants.
Yes.
And because we had masks, right? Our hairstyle was also the same.
Oh yes.
We had masks on, so people see, hey, these two guys same color and same hair. Are you twins or what? And the first person that asked was one of the makeup artists.
Yes.
Then I'm like, that's a strange question to ask. And then another person asked, like, why is people asking, like, are you two twins? Then I think there were like at least 3-4 people who asked. Then we realized that, we are dressed the same.
Yes, and FYI, we also have the same bag. Right. The Under Armour bag.
Yes.
So, yeah. So that's when we we kind of had something aligned, and after that we communicated with each other right after, and then that's where we get connected. So the thing is, it's very aligned in terms of when we're talking about, let's say, for this podcast, because this podcast is really about self-improvement. And I think that with both of our skills and knowledge, maybe we can benefit all of you out there who are listening to us.
And sometimes I think what we are not, I think we are not claiming to be experts.
Yes.
There will be situations, episodes, right, where we will invite experts to come to us, and we'll get answers from them as well, which goes back to the title of our podcast, the Uncomplicated Podcast, right? Because when you're talking about it, I'm thinking that, a lot of times when I see clients, they're like, oh, but it's so hard, it's so complicated, and so on. And I think that what we are trying to do, we are not making it easy for you, right? It's not, and I was mentioning to right, it's not called the easy podcast, it's the uncomplicated. We try to uncomplicate for things, the information, so that maybe you understand the situation better and you are able to apply.
That's right. That's right.
What do I think was the purpose of this podcast?
Right? I agree, because you see, we want to unravel certain topics where we feel like we could definitely do something easy for you. It's just like I've mentioned earlier on, it's like reading a book, but at the end of the day, you get something out of it. So for example, like you want to learn about how to become a better speaker, or you want to be somebody who can have better networks with friends, and that thing is complicated, right? But then we want to uncomplicate things to make things easier for you to digest, so that at the end of the day, you get some tips from us on how to get started. So this is where we come in. And I love the title. Actually, it was suggested by Haikal himself to do the Uncomplicated Podcast, because I feel like we can uncomplicate things.
Yes.
But it's a word, right? It's a word that is in the.
I think so. I think I have no idea, right? When after we agreed on that, right, I was like, no, actually, I had this, the Avril Lavigne song, what the hell, you go make things so complicated, right?
Yes.
So we are going to try to uncomplicate it.
Okay.
Maybe if it's not a word right now, in future, it will officially be a word.
We created a word of a non-word. So anyway, speaking about the podcast itself, so we will have, like Haikal has mentioned, we will have guests. We will also have guests who are experts and guests who have stories to share. So we will then look into how we can actually, provide help, or maybe listen to ways on how they can actually help you to improve yourself, or just uncomplicate things. And for today, especially, I feel like we are gonna, since it's an opening, it's a huge opening. We want to touch on maybe a specific issue that maybe a lot of you or a lot of us are facing.
I think a lot of everyone faces it.
I think so,
right?
Yes.
A lot. Not everyone. Like 99% of people face this, and I would say when you face this issue, right, it's actually a healthy thing most of the time.
Yes.
Right. And the topic that we want to talk about is self-compassion. Because I think we tend to be quite critical of ourselves.
Definitely.
Right? And it's a very normal thing for us to be critical of ourselves, because, well, one, you're not perfect. And there's always a way for us to be better. And so when you achieve something, well, we may feel that it's not good enough because there is something better. Right. So this idea about starting out with self-compassion is something that would apply to most individuals.
Correct. So one of the things that for myself, I'm pretty hard on myself most of the time, because we all have a certain standard of what we want to be or who we want to be, and of course society pressure is also there. So a lot of times we do put ourselves in a specific pedestal, but when we don't get into that pedestal or we don't achieve it, then that's where all the self-criticism will come in. So today, right now, we're going to talk about self-compassion, which I think, like what Haikal has mentioned, is a common issue for all of us. And how can we, at the end of this podcast, this episode, tackle that issue or make it more easier, uncomplicated for you to practice self-compassion?
Yes. Because when you say that, this is the psychologist in me coming out, right? Because when you say that you are hard on yourself, right? You know,
Yes.
and I mentioned I look at themes, you know, the patterns in a person's life, right? How long have you been hard on yourself, right?
Ever since I was born.
Why?
Did I get my? Okay, let me just see if this is right. Yo. I got the effects right. Okay.
Right. When is it that since you're born? Like, in what ways are you hard on yourself?
I think because we have so one example that I can give is, for example, because I'm also still a radio DJ. So when I do on air, I always get this at the back of my head. It's like, Raihan, try to speak properly and try to deliver properly. And then when you stumble on words, you go like, why did I do that? You know, it's something that you have pressure, you put pressure on yourself to always perform well, whether it's hosting anything or doing something. There's always this pressure to perform well because people are looking at you, people are hearing you. So you want to make sure that when you do something, they are able to say, "Hey, he did a great job." Nobody wants to leave a bad impression, lah. Right. So hence, I've always been really hard on myself. Even if, let's say, okay, so as most of you would know probably, that I love to exercise, I put a lot of pressure on trying to make sure that I have a specific goal achieved at a certain time. Wish I still haven't get that yet lah. But actually, most of them who meet me go like, "Hey, you look good, ah." I said, "No, I'm not there yet." You know, there's a self-criticism there.
Right.
Where I always tell myself, "Oh man, I'm far away from my goals." While others may say, "Hey, actually, you're there. You know, you're there." So yeah, I'm constantly hard on
this
myself.
far from your goals, these expectations, right? Like to be perfect. Any idea where this?
I guess the society pressure. Like ever since I was young, you know, there is a specific expectation of who or what we should be.
Yeah.
So for example, as a man, there's an expectation that a man should be tough and strong. And I go through a lot of bullying when I was younger. So when I was younger, a lot of guys called me a lot of names. You know, like because I was really frail. And I was I don't know how to play soccer. I'm bad at it.
Like you can crush them.
I don't know. I hope. But no, I don't want to crush anyone. I just crush people. That was a bad dad joke. Okay, so I went through a lot of bullies. I've been through bullying, so it kind of affected my confidence lah. At that point of time, that eventually, as I grow older, there is this need to improve myself to show that I am better than what they think of me. And I guess that's where the expectation just gets higher and higher.
Yeah.
And when you fail or you don't meet that expectation, you have self-criticism.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. That's the thing about expectations. Like it never in psychology, in what I do, we call it the unrelenting standards. It's unrelenting because, well, you're not going to be able to reach it, right? If you have, let's say, $1 million in your bank, well, why not 2 million? You got 2 million, why not 3? You got 6 packs, why not 8? It's never enough. And I think in the Asian context as well, that is something that's important. I would say I am someone who have very high expectations of myself as well, right? Maybe not so much in the fitness. I give up on the fact that I will probably not get a 6-pack, right? But then there may be other areas that I have high expectations of myself. And I think it is healthy to have the expectations, but when does these expectations become unhealthy for you? For myself, because as a psychologist, I've gone through my own work as a psychologist as well, seen a psychologist, and well, you know, sometimes I realize, where does my need for high expectations come from? I would say it's been there for many years as well, right? And this expectation for myself was because there's a lot, right? I am from a big family. I have cousins who are a lot of cousins who are my age. Comparing among the cousins, I was in school. I was usually in the top class, but at the bottom of the top class. right?
And that's a good problem.
Right.
Actually, I remember I was also in that same position. Like, I was always like there were like 40 plus, right? Students at that point of time.
Yeah.
So I was like 39 out of 42.
Oh wait, that's me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm always at the top class, but like around the relegation zone there.
Right.
So well, it's not, even if I have improved, right? It's still not good enough as well. So I just have to push myself to do more and more and more. And I guess at a certain time as well, I realized that this pursuit for excellence, right? It's actually not something that is achievable, right? I mean, it's good to be realistic, right? It's not we don't want to reach to a unrelenting kind of standard, because we never reach it. But what is realistic here for us, right? And that's where this idea of self-compassion comes in, where you can be able to accept that, hey, this is good enough. Not to like, what, if I'm not going to reach it, then I'm not going to care. But this is good enough for me, because that self-compassion will have to come from yourself, right? Because, for example, people telling Raihan that, hey, you look good and stuff like that, but no lah, still not there, right? When that self-compassion is there, then you'll be able to like, there is something there that, that there's a strength that I have, that I am actually good enough. But then, of course, doesn't mean that, okay, then I lepak, I don't do anything. But I'm going to still pursue this, but I can be kind enough to myself. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So there's a research that actually shows that people who actually do practice self-compassion are people who are less anxious, less depressed, and less stressed. They also have better resilience because they are better equipped to handle setbacks. And I agree with what you said earlier on, because when we practice self-compassion, that means it's not that we accept that, oh, okay, this is where I stand, I can definitely improve, but it's more of, hey, if I made some improvements, then I should be giving myself some pat on the back.
Yeah.
Because to reach where you want to go, it's not like an immediate jump. It's not like you step up, you 1, 2, 3 jump and you can reach your goal. No, it won't. It'll take time. If every progress you make is, I think that every progress I make is a progress.
Okay.
That should be celebrated lah.
Yeah.
Right.
For you to achieve that progress, what do you have to do?
I have to keep practicing. I have to keep doing what I do. Yeah.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
And I have to be aware that I have to keep practicing and I have to do what I do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is one mindset shift that will be helpful to have that self-compassion, because a lot of us that struggles with having that self-compassion, right, is because we are so focused on the outcome. Right? If you have like done so much and whatever, but the outcome is still not there, we are so hard on ourselves, right? And there usually that's because that's how we grow up as well, right?
Yeah.
Looking at the outcomes, right? But I think we need to celebrate the efforts. The outcome, if it comes, it comes, right? But usually when you put in the effort, the outcome will be there. But if you just very focus on outcome, the goal just continues shifting and shifting and shifting.
Yeah. Can I just ask? So earlier on, you mentioned that sometimes all this self-criticism can actually come from ourselves, and it could be stemming from our history. Sometimes it's the way we are brought up and all that, right? What if, let's say, an individual have constantly received criticisms ever since they were young, until now, until today, and to that they have fixed this mindset saying that, you know what, I can never be good, I can never be better. So how do you help them to practice self-compassion?
So when that happens, what occurs is that this person is already surrendering to that belief, right? That I'm never gonna be good enough. So what's the point? So that's another possible outcome of it. So for us, what happens is that, okay, this is the standards we are supposed to we are expected to meet. We will, go on and try and achieve it. But then there may be some other people like, if I'm not gonna be, you're never gonna be proud of me, then why should I try? If I'm not gonna reach that, then I try also, no point. So that would be a point of surrendering for them. And when there is that standard, what I would look at would be, well, how can you break that goals down, right? You want to be there. Let's it's just easy to like, okay, I want to be from where I am now, let's say that, right? My bank only got $10. I want to be a millionaire. You say that, but it's so hard. The jump is so high, right? So what are the efforts that you can take? Celebrate that small goals in between. So breaking down that goals towards where you want would be where you start feeling that, hey, you know what? I'm in control of the future. I am someone that is able to see that shift from $10 in my bank to $100. That's already 100% increase already. Wait, is it 1,000%? Max. It's 1,000% increase, right? And for some of my clients who have that kind of difficulty, we celebrate this kind of successes, right? Because it shows that, hey, you are developing that skills, you're developing that ability to, move on and eventually, hopefully, reach to that goal that you want. And along the way, be kind to yourself. Like, hey, I'm actually doing this.
Is self-compassion something that everybody can practice? Everybody can practice, no matter whether they are surrendering to that mindset or not. They can still practice.
Exactly. Yeah, and for myself, I would again go back to asking, like, where does this come from, right? And generally, if you are aware where these expectations come from, you will realize that, hey, these expectations are really unfair, because all of these come from a very young age, right? For yourself, expected to, to, I don't know, to look in a certain way as a boy, to be able to play football in order to fit in, right? For us to, I don't know, be in the top 10 of the class, for example, right? But hey, wait, there's only 10 people that can be in that top 10, right? Someone has to be at number 30 something,
and we are the ones
unfortunately, that's us,
representing
right?
the 30 plus.
But then, let's say, that expectation that, no, you can't do that. You need to be the top, and that is something that is unfair. Especially if you have put in that effort to do better, and you are making that improvement. Sometimes we don't celebrate that improvements, because again, it's easy to see the faults. I'm passionate about football. If you ask any goalkeeper, right? The goalkeeper can make 10 awesome saves, and then make one silly mistake, like the ball go in. Right? The newspaper will show, he made a silly mistake. Right? And that is very common for us to focus on the mistakes, the deficiencies that we have. And that's where we can look into that, that why am I so hard on myself? Right. And sometimes it's also to see that, well, it's not the end, right? If there is an area of improvement, this self-criticism, like I said, it can be healthy. This self-criticism can be healthy. Then, well, use it as a drive to improve things, right? But don't. But when it becomes unhealthy is when it limits you. It makes you feel that I'm not gonna achieve that. I'm not capable of doing that.
What would be some advice that you can give to, let's say, individuals who are facing with people around them who are not practicing self-compassion? For example, whether they're parents, whether they're friends, employers, who can see, maybe their peers or their employees or even their child, facing something tough. What can they do to practice self-compassion on them?
Well, how I normally see this is that, especially us living in a society, the expectations, or should I say the views that other people have on us is very important. Right? Because we want to be accepted, we want to be loved, and how people see us is really important. But whose view is more important, right? Your view of yourself or other people's view of you?
Wow.
What do you think?
Our view of ourselves.
Why is that so?
Because eventually we are in charge of our own lives.
Right. You're in charge of your own life. And these people who have their views on you, right? How much do they know about you? How much do they know about your struggles? Right? if you may have someone who would be like, say, struggling with weight issues, for example, right? It's easy for you, hey, gain weight lah, right? But does the person know the struggle that they have, right? In trying to lose weight or whatever, there's so much struggles that we have that sometimes people don't know, right? So of course, when I say the view of yourself, if you are doing something, you are trying to be better, but people still criticize you for it, then that's their view, something that reflects the reality, right?
Yeah.
Because when we let other people's view dictate how we feel or how we see ourselves, that is something that is unhealthy, especially if you don't have your own sense of self-compassion that, what, I am trying to do something here.
Yeah.
Right. And well, I do think that I'm generally a good person or whatsoever.
But what if, let's say, this person practice self-compassion, but at the same time, there is, because I think there's a fine line between practicing self-compassion and accepting that you are slowly improving, between, as compared to, you know what, this is how I am, I'm not going to improve. Because there's a fine line there, right?
Yeah.
Like accepting my fate as it is and accepting my fate that I can still improve, but it will take time, so I need to be kinder to myself. How do you balance that out?
So in that one, is the mindset, right? Does the person have that growth mindset? Right?
Yes.
If again, to me lah, right? If you feel that this growth is no longer important for you, I wouldn't tell someone who says that, Haikal, I got, let's say, like 10 million in my account, right? And I'm not gonna like hustle so much. I go like, hey, why 10 million? But if it doesn't really affect you, then I don't think that's a problem, right? The problem is that when you go and when you say that, what, I'm not gonna do anything about it, and as a result, you deprive yourself of certain needs, right? Certain needs for, I don't know, acceptance, certain needs for your ability to enjoy life, have fun, then that becomes a problem. So if you say that, what, I am happy with where I am, I don't want, like, I don't know, maybe for me, right? I'm happy not having a six-pack, right? You wouldn't go like, oh, you're sick, you should have a six-pack. I'm like, no, what? I'll go like, what, Raihan? I am active, I'm trying to lose weight, but I have some, expectations of myself that I think that, is all right, and it doesn't affect me in my physical health or whatsoever, then I think that is fine, right? But if, let's say, if a person goes like, I just accept it lah, I'm not gonna, for example, pursue my further studies, or I'm not gonna go for that promotion, and that would mean that my children would not be able to, have enough funds for themselves or whatsoever, then is that a problem or not? Right? So if there is no problem, then I guess that is fine. We don't have to always pursue excellence. But when it deprives you of something, then maybe that's when you can think that, am I just actually surrendering, or am I actually accepting that this is my fate?
So what advice, I just want to touch on, what if there are parents watching it, what advice would you give to parents to ensure that they also practice self-compassion to their children? For example, let's say, because we all have expectations for our kids. Sometimes we want them to score straight A's, etc. And then they don't achieve it. So maybe what are the things that maybe a parent can do to do that, to help them.
How old are these kids are we talking about?
Let's say we talk about primary school kids, PSLE, or
maybe this, genetics play a part, right? If your kids are not smart, then where does the genes come from? I'm just kidding. but I think it goes back to what we said just now about the effort. Right? Are you celebrating your kids' effort? Are you celebrating their outcomes? Honestly, right? To parents out there, when you celebrate the outcomes alone, right, it may be unhealthy as well. I have kids who, by the time they come to me, be teenagers, adolescents, these kids, they are just smart. They don't put in a lot of effort in their work, but they are just generally able to cope because they're just smart. And then when they enter JC, they enter uni, honestly, that's where your intelligence, right, is not sufficient. You need to put in hard work. And then they go like, why am I struggling, right? And then they and when you're in uni, people are all smarter, and people are smarter, and they go like, I'm trying my best, right? But last time I never tried my best. I'm at the top. Now I'm trying my best, but I'm like in the middle. Why? Right? So it doesn't build their resilience. So take away that focus on the outcome. Look into the effort that the child has, right? Because the purpose of education, I think the purpose of education, yes, there is knowledge, but it's also to provide the child with the skills, the resilience, the tenacity to overcome the challenges in life. Really, honestly, if you go to, of course, you want a good head start for your child, right? But when we go to work, how much of the stuff that we learn in school, right, actually applies?
That is one truth. Let me see if I can get it right. Oh, wrong. Okay, that was wrong. Yeah.
Right. So I think the value of education is really the skills, the resilience, that kind of stuff. Outcome is awesome if you can get that. But I think with effort, outcome is the byproduct of it.
Yeah.
So celebrate a child's effort, right? Work, support them. And when you see that they are doing well, or sorry, they are working hard, praise them. Then they would want to do it, right? Because if your child is just working very hard and you go, hey, this is still not good enough, right? What is the impact on the child, right? And well, we spoke about our experiences, this self-criticism, right? How the child may just lose they may lose that ability to believe in themselves because I've tried so hard, but I'm not good enough.
And then it just becomes a cycle. Right. So it's very important for us to practice self-compassion. And I think as hard as it is, it's actually pretty uncomplicated, I would say, to actually practice self-compassion. It just takes one specific action, which is to tell yourself certain things that could, maybe help you to feel more at ease and understand that it's a journey that you have to go through rather than a destination that you have to reach.
Exactly. Yeah, because if you go through that whole journey, well, hopefully you will reach to that destination. But even if you don't reach that destination, you reach another destination, you will have that skills, you would have that ability, and maybe learn from what not to do as well. You have all that experience for yourself.
That's right. So before we close today's episode, let us recap 3 main takeaways, or I would say 3 words or 3 phases on self-compassion that we would like to say to ourselves to end off this session today. I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is, it's okay to fail as long as I keep trying. Number 2 is, it's okay if I don't achieve my goals, maybe because I might achieve other goals. Number 3 is, it's okay if it takes a long time because I'm not chasing after any other timelines except for mine.
All right.
Yeah.
I think for me, my main 3 takeaways or reflection, I'm going to repeat 2 things to highlight this, and then maybe one more that kind of summarize what I was talking about. One would be, well, our view of ourselves is more important than other people's view of us. Secondly is that when we have negative thoughts, right, it can be helpful to drive us towards a certain level of excellence, but at a certain level, it becomes unhealthy for us. And I think the last one that I want to take away from this is that, or I hope the listeners will take away from this, is that, well, we are our own competition.
Yes.
Right? We are not trying to chase other people. We are just trying to be a better version of ourselves. Okay, so thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope that you find something valuable and that it inspires you a little more to be kinder to yourself. And we'll be back next week with more insights into self-care and growth.
Yep. And remember, you deserve the same compassion you give to others. And with that, let us all work towards uncomplicating the complicated. Bye.